There's some lag between OBS and YouTube, so all right, we're streaming.
Perfect.
Hello, welcome to our next live chat on YouTube. And this time it's with Alex. He's from NVIDIA. He's the community manager of the Inception program, who's also in charge of Turkey, among other regions. And he agreed about a couple months ago to sit down and talk with us what the Inception program is, how NVIDIA sees the future of AI is going to be like, and what are the support systems that NVIDIA provides to the startup ecosystem. One quick note here, we're live on YouTube, and we're also recording this session. If the connection is not as good as we want it to, we will just convert to the recorded session as soon as possible. And we will be monitoring the questions from YouTube, but if everything fails, you can send your questions to us in any way possible in all the Workinlot social media channels. So having said that, welcome Alex, thank you very much for joining us. And I know you have a pretty hectic schedule. I don't know where you are right now, but I know you weren't there like 2 days ago, and you aren't going to be there tomorrow. So thanks a lot for making the time. So I will leave it to you. I mean, let's start with who you are and what you do with NVIDIA and outside of NVIDIA. And let's start talking about how NVIDIA supports the global artificial intelligence startups with their programs.
Absolutely. So first of all, Baran, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you, obviously to your audience. Tell the entrepreneurial audience in Turkey and beyond about what we do, both in NVIDIA and in NVIDIA Inception. So I think counting with a lot of people with different backgrounds being in the audience. So let me perhaps start with a little bit of an intro into AI in general, right?
Yes, please.
And then narrowing it down to what we understand as AI, and in this way getting to the NVIDIA startup program. So AI is all the rage now, right? Literally every second startup you will find out there will be claiming that they're doing AI, and in many cases this is true, right? The AI is not only the in now, as they say, but literally we are in the AI in explosion revolution now. There's been a couple before. Some would say that the theoretical basis for the AI revolution was there back in like 1970s.
Yes.
What was lacking though those times, and then of course after the every single AI revolution, so-called revolution back then, there was the AI winter, as they called it, right? The expectations were too high and things didn't work as planned, and basically what was lacking back then and what is in existence now is three things. First of all, is the big data, right? Once you're in the area, in the space where you can collect and store a lot of data, then this is a complete game changer. Something that we technically simply was not in existence in 1970s, 80s, or even at the crust of the century then. Secondly, of course, it is the software, right? It is, if you're doing deep learning, the frameworks, the explosion of network of frameworks, various containers. Same for machine learning. I mean, I won't get into the details, but basically, what we now have is a wide choice of various software that can enable working and processing this data in a meaningful way. And finally, and that's where NVIDIA comes into play, is of course the GPUs. So the physical processing units that can make basically make sense in terms of processing of that huge data, with the frameworks being in between. So it's number one, the big data, then all the software offerings and all the software innovation that's come into play, let's say in the last 5 years, and of course the GPUs that's been there before for a while, right? And that's what most AI lay people, as I would call them, know NVIDIA for, right? We've been for a very long time. We've been a gaming company. The GPUs were started as tools for graphics for professional gaming. But because of the nature of a GPU, of the multiple cores and the ways to parallelize important functions, they're also the perfect tools by design. They're also the perfect tools for artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Can I ask you one thing there? I'm just wondering, when was the time that somebody thought, hey, we're using all this CPUs for processing in our AI applications. How about we try GPUs? I mean, who thought of that? Where did that come from?
I would say there was an early bet by NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang. He is, I mean, at some point, someone had to take that leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
That first of all, the AI revolution is coming, that we will get enough data, that the software ecosystem will be there. And of course, that all started, I would say, in a big way with CUDA, the NVIDIA's environment for AI. So this is something that I would say makes NVIDIA stand out, makes NVIDIA unique, and also, quite frankly, hard to challenge, because now with CUDA you've got the ecosystem of developers. We've got so many adopters, so many programmers who are good in CUDA.
Yeah.
That it's basically right now, I would say, a combination of course, the excellent chips, and the software and the vibrant developer community, which we value tremendously. That all makes NVIDIA certainly a leader in AI and well positioned for the future, because the AI field is booming now.
Yeah, actually, just before you continue, we kind of touched on what you say, that AI is much faster than it was 30 years ago. A couple of, I think it was the last live chat we had was with a accelerator/investor who has done AI investments in the past. And what we said, that now it's like the perfect storm. Everything is coming in the right direction. It's a total chaos. Everything is really powerful. It's the perfect storm, and starts new stuff keep popping up left and right all the time. Exactly. Absolutely. Because of big data, because of the software, and because of the hardware. And you touched on that as well. So I just want to point it out. Sorry for cutting you. Please continue.
No problem. No problem. I think you're making a great case. And speaking of AI, as I've said already, there's a lot of hype around it. A lot of this, just like with anything that is that's the talk of the town is just superfluous, right?
Yeah.
But at the core of it, there are actually the researchers, the solution architects, and startups who are making AI reality, as opposed to a dream that it was in the 70s, or just a theoretical possibility that it was, let's say, in the 90s or early in 2000s.
Okay. So how does the programs come into play that NVIDIA has? I mean, I know that, first of all, I know that you have a definition of AI startup. So
yes.
we don't really abide by, I know the definition, I would like you to explain it too, but in our program, we don't really take that definition. And we have had talks with founders who are actually outside your definition of an AI startup. But I would like our viewers to hear NVIDIA's definition of an AI startup as well.
All right. Well, obviously AI is, it's very hard to define, because first of all, it's really broad, and there's no universal definition that everyone agrees on, or quite frankly, that everyone needs to agree on.
Yep.
For us, we are basically coming from let's say, those three kinds of those three things that I talked about before. So what makes the AI revolution reality these days, and our definition is based on those three. More specifically, we are saying that AI is machine learning and deep learning.
Okay.
So this is a significant and a very, I would say, practical and workable definition of AI. Something that you can easily apply to, especially in the startup world, right, where the applications of AI are just simply countless. So our starting point is the technology, rather than, let's say, the verticals, the application. So whenever a startup is doing machine learning and deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, we would say that this is AI in our definition, and we would like to talk to those startups. So the key word is machine learning, and then solutions utilizing machine learning techniques. And deep learning is for us a marker of certainly big data, certainly the certain prowess and certain knowledge in terms of the software around it, and naturally and logically enough, the use of GPUs, because these days you can't really do a deep learning in a meaningful way without acceleration, without GPU acceleration.
So, in other words, if a startup is utilizing machine learning and or deep, let's keep deep learning to the side now. But if a startup is utilizing machine learning in a way to provide service to their target customers, but not really creating their own machine learning algorithms, creating their own technology, but using existing technologies, would that fit into your description or no?
It would fit into the description of AI. But if someone is let's say a consultancy, right? Getting into red meat. We like talking to companies who are developing original products. So obviously there's a lot of companies who are just working for the third party, right? Delivering bits and pieces of technology for them, or like a classical consultancy, just basically having a couple of clients and advising them on their AI transformation. We are talking to the startups. We obviously want to be in touch with them, because they are right at the tip of the spear in both proselytizing AI, and sometimes also in terms of driving it and promoting the technical excellence. But our speaking more narrowly about NVIDIA Inception program, our primary target are the machine learning startups who are developing their own solutions, applications that doesn't have to be, let's say, something complex, right? Immediately targeted at the big companies, but we want to see something, certain originality and a product that a startup can bring to market.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Now that's clear. Let's dive into the Inception program. I mean, what is the Inception program? And specifically, I mean, things they can read about the Inception program online as well, but you are the community manager of the program, which is also in charge of Turkey. What is the Inception program in Turkey? What does that mean? Who has benefited from it until now, and what's happening within the Inception program ecosystem, especially in Turkey?
All right. So first of all, a couple of basic things about Inception program in general. It is a global NVIDIA program, so we are part of the NVIDIA's company. What we do, and it's globally about a team of around a dozen people working with startups. What we do is the ambition, the ambitious goal is to have in our program pretty much all of the leading cutting-edge machine learning, deep learning startups globally, based on our, I would say, quite inclusive still definition of AI. We don't really, let's say, focus on one certain vertical, because we have startups from the autonomous machines, automotive, all the way to things like retail, e-tail, manufacturing, where fintech, healthcare, health tech, medical imaging, all of those areas are being currently revolutionized by AI, by startups. I would say in the bigger, just to give you a couple, a feel of how big Inception is, I would say there's about 1,500 to 2,000 startups in the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, Africa, and the figure really depends on whether you include also Russia and India. So that's why I'm giving you that bracket.
Okay.
But let's say about 2,000 startups in the bigger region. Our definition of a startup, then, we've spoken about AI. Now let's.
That was going to be my next question, actually. Thank you.
What's a startup, right? I would say we're quite inclusive, but there's certainly a minimal threshold. So we work with only with legal entities. So even if it's a brilliant group of students or graduates who are out there in their garage having, designing the next Apple, we would really love them to formalize that in a way. So it's only companies, only legal entities, then only groups of people. So once again, whatever the genius of one person can be, we really believe in the power of cooperation. So there should be at least 2-3 people, a team of 2-3 people. Ideally also giving their full time to the project. And we would love to see at least some sort of support, and that can be either the participation in an accelerator, incubator, or some basic funding, pre-seed, seed. Here in Europe, let's say we are not really strict about that, but we realize that in the US, for example, it's really easy to raise a pre-seed, right?
Yeah.
The European VC and angel investor, and sorry for saying European, let's bring it to EMEA, like to the bigger region. The regional VC and angel scene is certainly not as vibrant as in the US. Yeah. So here in the bigger EMEA region, we just want to see some definitive evidence that the applicants who have a program, who have a team, know what they're doing. So who are aware of our definition of AI, and certainly some sort of a business plan and a pitch would be very, very helpful. So I would say those are not that strict rules in terms of the definition of a startup.
So.
And
one question there, you didn't really get into anything about product market fit. So the startup having sales being on the revenue side is not really a prerequisite. It can be pre-product market fit, but you're assuming that with the 2 or 3 people, ideally full-time on it, and some support if it was the United States in terms of funding, if it's in Europe, or in EMEA region in terms of being part of an accelerator, incubator, etc., and having a pitch that qualifies for a potential future that the startup can enjoy, and you're not really looking for revenue or no revenue or anything like that, right?
Absolutely. Okay. We are not focusing on revenue. We don't have a very, very strict. We don't have, in the EMEA region, we don't have a strict limitation on exactly how much a startup should raise in terms of investment. But obviously, it's a case-by-case deliberation, right? Some startups are just 3 people, no money, but we love them because there's a lot of potential in what they do, and there can also be applications coming, let's say, from a bigger team of people. Working on something that's quite frankly is already being done by several dozens of startups around the world, and even though they might have the money and they might have some kind of structure of support, they're not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that they will be part of Inception. So those are the basics. Let's say the threshold, and then in each separate case, we're talking to the startup to see the bigger picture.
Yep. So this is the minimum requirements, and a startup applies. I can tell from my experience that the application is very straightforward, and I've seen how it works, so it's very straightforward, it's easy. And once a startup gets into the Inception program, then what happens?
All right, let's say you as a startup are successful, you're part of the Inception program. The good thing actually, there's several good news for you then. First of all, there are no strings attached, right? We don't take equity. We don't require you to do anything with NVIDIA or for NVIDIA. There's also no fee for the program, and that's sometimes the startups find it hard to believe, right? The natural question is, hey, NVIDIA, what's in it for you, right? You're not a charity, you're not an NGO. My response, and that is actually, I think, I'm happy that I don't have to spin and I don't have to, tell our startups the story that is as close to truth as possible. Being very frank, we can say we are in a position where we can afford to do things for startups without asking AI startups, without asking anything at the early stage for it. So we are happy to basically give startups all the benefits that we give, and I'll tell you and the audience a little bit about those benefits in a short while. And the end goal of the Inception program is to see the startups become unicorns, or let's say the next Apples and Googles of the world. And our bet is, if we do a good job, if we at Inception program and NVIDIA in general support you in the early stage, and give you the access to physical GPUs, to our software, and to the network of support and marketing, ultimately we will have those startups as our customers.
Yeah.
So the mentality, the mentality is help the startups when they're small, when they basically cannot afford a lot, and then once they are big, they'll be with us.
Yeah. So what is it that they get once they get accepted to the program?
Excellent question. There are 3 pillars of the Inception program. First of all, it is let's say the technical support that we provide to startups, and that is the access to our training suits, something that NVIDIA uses to conduct trainings with the bigger corporations. Something that we do on site. Let's say someone from NVIDIA or our partners goes to a bigger corporate, and we have 2 to 3 days intensive training their solution architects and engineering teams. To the startups, we offer the access to those, and then obviously with the corporates, it obviously comes with the fee, right? We offer to the startups, to the Inception members, the access to those training suits for free. So, and on a self-serve basis, we assume that the startups would be flexible enough to know how to leverage those resources, and those are quite frankly nothing like a YouTube video, right? This is something that requires you to know what you're doing, bits and pieces of coding, how to transfer your code to the GPUs, from the basics of TensorFlow all the way to the advanced issues in medical imaging, let's say. This is one thing. Secondly, it is let's call it the marketing and sales support mix. A lot of things there. I'll just mention a couple. The early stage startups, for example, would appreciate using the NVIDIA Inception badge logo on their website. Then, as the startups, as the somewhat more mature startups, would probably benefit from the discounts to the GTC conference, the biggest AI conference happening all over the world, starting with Silicon Valley in Europe, in Japan, in China, you name it. We do with more mature startups, or we do something more targeted as the smaller events or the bigger events like I had in Istanbul in February on the 22nd with the Istanbul University of Technology, ITU, where we bring together all the startups. There's a pitching session, all the Inception members, there's a pitching session, there's a networking opportunity. We obviously have presentations of our solutions. And all the way to, let's say, the startups that are reaching the scale up stand, who have the working solution, something that you mentioned before, or who have the revenue, right? Who have done the POCs, who have shown that their products work, With those startups, we do direct introductions to the industry, right, to our own partners. So this is something that is meant for the mature startups. And the third pillar is, of course, the GPUs, right? Speaking of discounts for enterprise-grade GPUs, speaking of something like the GTX or RTX series. Yep. And now we're getting somewhat into the NVIDIA product. I'll make it as simple as possible for the audience out there. So basically, there are consumer cards, graphic cards that people use mainly for gaming, but they can be also a good starting point. A good starting point for AI. They're not specifically meant for it, right? If you're serious about AI and if you want to scale and grow, this is only a foot in the door. And those are relatively anyone can go to eBay or Amazon, whatever, and buy yourself a gaming card. Those are relatively cheap. But when we're talking about the enterprise grade GPUs, which come with enterprise support, which are meant to run 24/7. Which are meant to be robust, and of course have the software ecosystem and the cores there specifically made for deep learning, machine learning. Those things are somewhat more costly, and we realize that startups, in order to scale and to make this quantum leap from something that you use for gaming all the way to something that might be in your workstation or in your server running 24/7, and on which your clients would rely, right, to minimize the downtime. For those things, we offer unique discounts for startups. So something up to the 30% for our AI supercomputers, the DGX Station DGX1. And these are the deals that you won't find out there in the market industry, right? Finally, it is also about the price of the professional enterprise grade GPUs, and we're doing our best to make those affordable to start up, let's say, sooner rather than later.
Okay, so Inception program, they get all these benefits on the 3 pillars, and they're fantastic pillars, by the way, to be honest with you. And do the startups ever graduate from Inception, or do they get kicked out? What happens?
Another great question. Well, there is a way to graduate. Yes, the simple answer is yes. It hasn't happened very often, right? Although the Inception program is about 3 years, we do not. At no point do we say, well, we just don't want you anymore in the program. I mean, naturally, some startups just use all of the benefits. They first go through the Deep Learning Institute, then they do a lot of marketing with us. Let's say we have a story about them on NVIDIA blog, create a lot of buzz, and then they buy something like a DGX system. In theory, that is all that we have to offer. So there's been a couple of startups who we've approached, and they've come to us and said, that's actually more common, that they would come to us and say, hey, we don't really want to be seen as startups. We're just mature companies. Yeah. So we have them as Inception alumni. So they remain in the ecosystem. They're usually also willing to give to Inception, right? They become our either more broader partners, or they support us with the events. They provide, let's say, venues for Inception meetups. They remain helpful to the community, which we are very happy to see. Yeah. As for kicking startups out of the program, we are not normally doing this. But obviously, if we see that a startup has been terminated, right? Sometimes that happens, especially with the earlier stage startups. They exist no more. Then we obviously try to get in touch with them and say, hey, are you alive? Are you interested in Inception? And in most cases, we would get either a no answer, meaning the startup doesn't exist anymore, or they simply would tell us, well, we're not more interested, or we've pivoted and we're not doing AI.
All right. Okay. is there a next stage, next level program after Inception? Like, does NVIDIA invest in a structured way to AI startups, or does NVIDIA have other ties in the ecosystem, let's say, a top-notch accelerators, etc., that is like a step up from the Inception program, or is it the Inception program, then we're done, the startup is a customer, is on the way to becoming a big company and a big customer as well, we're done? Or is there a next level, like in terms of investment, in terms of other forms of acceleration, etc.?
Another great question. We as NVIDIA now, we have an investment arm. Once again, this is not our main line of business, right? Mm-hmm. But we certainly love to see startups being successful, growing, scaling, and at some point we as a company might consider also investing. We usually do not lead the rounds, right? We're there as more on the technology side, right? Mm-hmm. We're part of the round. So yes, the answer is NVIDIA does invest in startups. But this is not something that we in Inception actively promote, because this is a rare thing.
Yeah, like so let's put it into perspective. You said there are about 2,000 startups in the Inception program in the EMEA region. How many startups were invested in by NVIDIA Ventures in the same region to date? Do you have
I would say we invest in one company globally, not in EMEA, but about one company globally per month. Okay. That would be. So that would be a fair. It gives a scale. One company per 2 months. That kind of thing. So that's why I wouldn't say the NVIDIA invest in startups really in a mass way, but the possibility is there, right? If you're strategically aligned as a startup, strategically aligned with NVIDIA, if there's potential, if the startup's growing and scaling, that is happening. So that's possible. Okay. As for the next steps, usually the startups who are graduating, who are becoming Inception alumni, they just move to up to the next level of cooperation with NVIDIA, both in terms of tech and sales. So they keep the connection with NVIDIA, but at a different level. So they become, as you say, customers or big customers, and we are very happy to support them in that new capacity. Okay, great. That summarizes it perfectly. And we're over 30 minutes now. We're just past the point, and I don't see any questions. I will ask a couple of the questions that I'm sure that would have come. How do we apply to the Inception program, which I know the link, and I will put it under the description so we don't have to spend time on that. It's going to be under the description, the application link. The question is, when is the next time you're coming to Istanbul, and can startups have a chance to have some sort of open office hours with you or about the program, or will we have some sort of a communal session, not just only to the members of the program, but to everybody, explaining the program and answering questions? What do we have a time for that? Well, I really enjoyed the time that I spent there in late February. A very vibrant community, and actually it was mostly the Inception members that were present. But I would, the next time I'm in Istanbul, I'd say I would make it for Inception and also for the general AI community. So that's going to be hopefully a bigger event. Yeah. Also, it's the chance for the AI community to be there and perhaps talk to Inception members, talk to me. In terms of dates, I am already booked until the end of this year. So I expect another trip to Turkey in the next year, hopefully early around February, March. I think that would be a good guess at this point. Okay. So basically being in Istanbul once a year to catch up with the community, and having something also like maybe a couple of hours for the general ecosystem, right? For Q&A session to talk to anyone who would like to talk to us. That said, just a couple of things about specifically about the Turkish AI ecosystem. I find very interesting that the most, let's say, the most frequent applications of AI, and that's what I'm seeing in our Inception membership, are the e-commerce, retail, and e-tail applications. So this is very, very prominent and strong in Turkey. I have seen a couple of very good automotive startups that has happened as well. A couple of generally computer vision in, let's say, in security and defense. Those startups were quite impressive. On the other side, I would love to see more health tech and fintech companies, because this is something that's happening globally, especially in let's say Northern Europe, where I'm just coming back from. Various medtech and health tech applications. This is something I think that where there's a lot of potential, untapped potential in Turkey. So if someone is watching us and thinking of, well, why don't I do a solution for medical imaging or something in genomics? There is, in Turkey, in my experience, there is a niche for new excellent startups. So I would certainly encourage graduates or just the young entrepreneurs to go into health tech, med tech, fintech with AI and basically reap the benefits.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. It was really, I mean, the message in a nutshell is, if you want to start something new, look into these areas, because follow the money. That's where the money is flowing right now. That's where we have maybe a gap, maybe we have a void in the Turkish ecosystem. For the startup that want to stand out and make a difference, those could be the areas to be looking at right now. And it's fantastic coming from you also, because you're not somebody from the inside the ecosystem, you're somebody from outside looking over, looking down and seeing the voids much better than we can see from within the ecosystem. So thank you very much for that suggestion. So next trip in probably February or March of 2019. I mean, I told you before, if you let us, we would love to sit you together with our ecosystem as well. Not the Inception program members, but the non-Inception program aspiring entrepreneurs and startups. We would love to have an opportunity to host you the next time you come in. And thank you very much for your time. You said that you want to keep it strictly in 30 minutes. Like I said, with Turkish people, we never stick to time. It just continues on and on and on, because we love talking. But thank you very much for being patient with us. And hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. All the best to you guys, young entrepreneurs aspiring. There's so much passion for AI in Turkey. I frankly haven't seen that anywhere in Europe. So go ahead, do something amazing with AI, and see you in Istanbul, in Turkey, in 2020.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Alex.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.